I think that's really a disservice that prosecutors do by putting victims and the family of the defendant on opposite sides, or even putting, treating some people as good victims and other people as bad victims, depending on what sort of position they hold on the death penalty. I think what I've heard from family members on both, who on the other side of that is they actually both feel really neglected by the system and by society. We've heard from victims' families who talk about just the loneliness that comes, several months down the road after the murder's taken place or the trial's taken place, and people don't want to talk to them about their loved one who was taken from them, that there's this discomfort there and awkwardness, or they don't even want to bring up the name of their daughter or son or brother who was murdered. And I feel, they feel like what they really need in the wake of this horrible, tragedy and crime is support from their community. They need help paying for funeral expenses. They don't need the promise of the death penalty to feel better. And on this kind of the same vein, I think that families of death row inmates or those facing capital murder charges just carry with them a lot of shame and guilt. They don't want to tell people that they have a loved one who's on death row, and they don't know who to turn to for support in navigating the prison system. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to share experiences, and there are, I think also maybe the role that we can play in the abolition movement is just continuing to facilitate contact, not necessarily between these families, but between like victims and offenders' families, but like connecting offenders' families with each other so that they can share information or experiences, or tell them like, here's how you set up a account, or what, any of those sorts of things. And the same thing I think with victims' families, like what to do in the wake of, what do you do in the wake of a murder, and how do you deal with it and process that. So we've tried to do some things like that. Like last year at our conference, we had a workshop that was just a private session for families and close friends of inmates on death row or those who've been executed, just to come together and talk, because we've heard some people say at various gatherings, like, this is the first time I've ever met anyone like me. I think at that gathering in San Antonio last fall with the families, then that was actually a good opportunity. That was families of someone who had been executed despite their mental illness, and then families of loved ones who'd been killed by someone with mental illness. So that, I thought, was actually a really effective model and was facilitated by Murder Victims Families for Human Rights. So I think they can fill that role in sort of bringing people together just to engage in dialogue about their common experiences, even though, the system puts them against each other, or, makes them part of this whole adversarial process.